Welcome back to the Arise News Hour. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, Zimbabwe's next presidential and parliamentary elections are likely to take place in 2018, and pre-election campaigning has started. President Mugabe is, of course, 93 years old. His wife recently suggested that he would win elections as a corpse. But beyond that, Zimbabwe has to grapple with the issue of succession. In addition to its enormous economic challenges, the country has been under the grip of a severe drought, which has left a third of its 15 million people dependent on food aid. The state is said to be running out of dollars. Many workers have gone unpaid, and unemployment remains desperately high. It's a dire situation, but it could also present a sterling opportunity for the opposition in the country in those nationwide elections in 2018. So who will succeed Robert Mugabe? Well, last month, former Minister of Industry and International Trade, Dr. Nkosana Moyo, announced his candidacy for that election, and he joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Let's just clarify something. The main opposition parties have formed an alliance aimed at putting aside their differences and focusing on defeating Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF party. Are you part of that alliance?
No, APA is not part of that alliance.
Right. So tell us about your own group.
Well, APA is a new party,
right.
A movement actually launched last month. And our view is that we are offering to Zimbabweans something new. And when you look at the statistics in the past 3 elections or so, it is clear that the majority of eligible Zimbabweans have not found something that they find attractive, and so they stay away. They don't bother to register to vote. And our view is that if you join the opposition alliance, as it's called, coalition, all you're doing is continuing to appeal to a minority of Zimbabweans who've already decided that they support those parties that are already in existence. You are not yet addressing the fact that the majority of Zimbabweans are staying away from the polls.
Right, but there have been suggestions that your entry into the race will divide the opposition and make it easier for Mr. Mugabe to win. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is exactly what I just said, in the sense that people are addressing 40%, 45% of the people who consider what is on offer as being worthy of voting for. Right. That particular approach does not address the people who are not bothering to go and register, because they are staying away in spite of these parties being around. We are new, and we are targeting to mobilize the 60%.
Yeah, but they're saying that if you were to come together with the opposition in an alliance, that it would make it easier. Sort of like the sort of thing, I mean, that happened in Nigeria, for example, that if you come together as an alliance of opposition groups, that 60% you're talking about that have not been targeted will be brought into the fold.
But the logic is wrong, you see. Those 60% have stayed away when these players have been in the ring. If we could have attracted them and then we join with something that they said we are staying away from, there is a big assumption in saying they'll still come with you anyway.
Right.
Yeah? It's a big assumption, which is not logical to me.
Right. Mr. Mugabe has, of course, been in power for nearly 40 years, and in that time, many have challenged him and many have failed. Yet you're willing to, as it were, dare where many a brave soul have fallen.
Yeah, that is true, because we are changing the whole conversation. If you go back and again analyze how the opposition parties have approached the elections, they've said something which is obvious. We do not want what is going on, but we are saying that's only part of what the message should be. It should be clear that everybody does not like almost everybody does not like what's going on. But you have to, in addition to that, you have to offer in a positive statement what you would do post the Mugabe era. And the opposition parties have not been very clear on that issue. And we believe that our country deserves an answer on both issues. The first bit is easy. The second bit is what requires a clarity of what would you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get to that, hopefully, in the coming moments. But you were, of course, part and parcel of the Mugabe government that millions are complaining about. I mean, you were a Minister of Industry and Trade, International Trade, 17 years ago. So you helped to create and perpetuate the mess that the country is in.
That's interesting, Charles. I smile because of the way you phrase it. You were part and parcel.
Well, you were.
I was in government for all of 10 months.
Right.
And after that 10 months, I left, and I'm the only minister who's ever resigned on principle, precisely because I said I do not agree with what is going on. I was invited, incidentally, not as a member of the party. I was an outsider, invited on the basis of my skills. I got into the cabinet, gave it a chance to see whether I could actually influence what was going on. And as soon as it became obvious that what I was proposing, what I was putting on the table, was not being taken on board, I decided not for me, and I left.
Right, but ZANU-PF supporters, so that's the ZANU-PF, the ruling party, say Mr. Mugabe gave you a chance to serve, but you walked away and left a big mess behind. What do you
mean I left a big mess?
Well, that's what they say. I'm putting it to you.
No. I left because I disagreed.
What was it that you disagreed about?
Everything. That's the policies that have led to exactly where we are.
But surely you must have been aware of those policies before you took up the position.
If you go back, in 2000 exactly, the cabinet was constructed in a rather interesting way. 8 ministers out of the cabinet were created where we had a particular provision in the constitution. And 8 of us came in under the banner of technocrats. So on the face of it, that cabinet was constructed in order to address the technical issues of how to manage an economy or a country. But when we got into cabinet, most of my colleagues, if not all of them, because they came from the party, stopped being technocratic and went and became politicians.
Right.
I stayed as a technocrat. I was not a member of the party. And when this became obvious that, in fact, the political thought process was winning the day, it's almost like the example I normally use, an analogy. If you are in a football team and you're one of 11 and you're the only one believing in a different strategy, you know whose strategy is going to be implemented.
Right.
Yeah?
Well, but there are lots of young people who've appeared on the scene in Zimbabwe who are being seen as better leaders than people of your generation. One example being Pastor Evan Mawarire, who started a social media campaign against Robert Mugabe. He's critical of your generation for failing to deliver, and his message is resonating with millions of people across Zimbabwe. He says he's toying with the idea of running for office.
My attitude is that in a democracy, that's quite okay. My attitude is that Zimbabweans are smart people. So let people offer themselves the same way that you do applying for a job. And Zimbabweans will understand where their country is today. They will understand, therefore, how to frame the job that needs to be done. And then they will look at the short list, or long list for that matter, of those who offer themselves and see what the best match is.
Right. Objectively speaking now, how popular does Robert Mugabe remain in Zimbabwe? His wife suggested that he could win elections even as a corpse.